Hey, this is Chris at Art Secret Studio, and we're looking at the early stages of a drawing. But I do believe because her drawing skills are outstanding, her touch is incredible, I think we can add to this exercise. And I think that's dependent on each person. But I think it has to be sooner that we add these concepts, and that's telling her story. So it's not been sprayed, so she can't go dark enough. She's going to spray it now. She does know if she sprays it, then there's no fixing the negative shape and there's no fixing the white. But really, the exercise is all that matters. And the exercise is, why did the sergeant pose this person at a certain time of day? It's not really a portrait about her. It's a portrait about the time of day and the quality of light. Because, I just love her blue eye. And that lip color, man, it just matches her face perfectly. It's just exquisite. And I'm going to say it again. The painting or portrait I'm trying to say this with Vicky sitting right next to me. The portrait is about the person, but what carries the message is the color, the contrast, the pattern, the texture, and the shape. Okay? The elements of art are what the painting's about. Stop looking at the person, because it sure isn't her blue eye. This class exercise is what I call figure ground relationship. How light is this compared to this, compared to this, compared to that, compared to this, compared to this? Learning to get your eye to move in 3 or 4 places at the same time. Because when you paint, and if I'm painting a portrait and I put a little pink on the cheek and I think, gosh, that looks like the pink I need, but on the cheek it doesn't look right. It's what's next to it that's wrong most of the time, not the pink I chose. So when you start juxtaposing the lemon, you start to realize, okay, a little bit of green, a little bit of orange, a little bit of gray, what combo am I looking for? Well, the combo is also the surrounding values, and we call that simultaneous contrast. So the values of these light and darks seem to be where Sargent wants us to look. So I'm making this up. I don't know what Sargent was thinking. But in my mind, this is about the quality of light. So now, since we're all in agreement, because I'm the boss, and I decide whether you move to the next exercise or not, we're all in agreement. Yeah, that's so funny. You used to think I was all knowledgeable, and then I realized they just want to move to the next exercise. So what happens is I said, well, why don't we do the art mapping? Why don't we do the macro, the micro, and the mini micro? And these are terms I made up, but I learned 2 words, macro and micro. So if you pick a number 1 spot, so the macro are where you're going to pick 3 or 4 or 5 places that you think are going to tell the viewer about the quality of light. And she felt like it was the shoulder right here in this area. I agree. And then she said, this is the most important. And then she said down here and then here. Interesting. Sargent's having me look everywhere except her blue eyes. He's having you look at the value difference between light and dark. So we would call this painting a painting about contrast. And it's the difference in the value that get my eye to move in those places. And that's what we call the macro. And I wrote it down here. And she chose number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4, where to look. She had no trouble picking it out. I agreed completely. The micro is within the macro. There has to be what's number 1. So now it's in A, B, C, D. So in this area, it's what's 1, what's 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm sorry, A, B, C, D, E, the area you want me to look at. Since you're using contrast and a color, then the most contrast is in one spot, then you can't use the same amount of contrast in the B spot, and then a little less in the C spot. Does that mean you systematically have to say value 1 in one area, value 2 and value in another? No, because it depends on what's next to it and its location and what it is. How much visual attention is it bringing to you? The value differences are making contrast. So it's a contrast measurement. Except, I want to add this. The upper left is visually heavy in the painting. The middle is visual heavy, and the lower right is visually heavy. Anything you do in any one of these 3 amplifies what you did. If you make this 1 next to 15 right here, and you make this 4 next to 12, less contrast. Because of its location, this could now look like 1 next to 15. How much time does it get your eye to stop at that area and in the order? And for whatever reason, pattern would make your eye go there. Texture would make your eye go there. Color would make your eye go there. So you have to look at it as, I want you to look at these 3 or 4 places in this order, but there is no system. You have to step back and say, hey, my eye's going there and I don't know why. Maybe something happened to me when I was a child and green or blue or red does something to me and I'm just looking at that blue area and it bothers me. But whatever it is, folks, you have to train your eye to see, why am I looking there? You have to train your eye to say to yourself, is this the order I want and am I looking there in that order? So I'd like to say 1 next to 15 needs to be in this area. And then you'll say, okay, so then this has to be 2 next to 14 and 3 next to 13. But sometimes because of the size and what it is and where it is, those numbers don't always correlate. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, here's why we're doing this talk. Because this incredibly talented person made an artsy mark without realizing what this person did. No names. We're talking because of that mark right there. Catherine.
Yes.
Do you want to help this person?
I want her to be confident because she was going to blend it. She knew what she needed to do.
She knew what she needed to do.
Just got there too soon.
Yeah.
I just got here too soon. Okay, if I just get rid of it. Get it there. Much better. The number 1 place Sargent wants me to look is right here. On the sleeve. Now, I don't know where the order is. It could be number, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, the A, B, C in that order, So if the white, you said this is number 1, then this might be 2, and then this could be 3, and then this could be 4 and 5 in this sequence. So this has to be very unimportant, but Sargent is sharper right here. And then he pulls and runs out of paint, touching lighter here. And he could even fan it. And then he could darken around it. Remember how also, you never miss the opportunity to connect your darks. So as you take this dark here, so this isn't standing out like a lone soldier. As you start to put in the shadow here, you can look for ways to merge it. So it's not by itself. And then it's lighter, and then it's just a little darker. Now we're into Velasquez's spinners, where every 1/4 inch is sort of changing the value, the sharpness, and the relationship. And then it's kind of sharp right here, but not as much here. So all of a sudden, my brain is saying, where is it the strongest, and now which is it the softest? And that's what I call the mini micro. So what I'm saying is, every time you make a mark, you start at the most important spot, decide how dark it can be, and then you pull as you go away. Less important. And that's the mini micro. So the macro are the major parts that tell you where to look. The micro, and it could be 3 to 7 or 8, there's no right or wrong. The micro is within each major macro is an A, B, C, D order. And the mini micro is every stroke you make is held accountable to that story. And the sum of this tells your story, not the person. And Sargent's after the quality of light and not the person. So what's my complaint? So what I'm asking now is that you hold every stroke accountable. That you start the thought process. So I'm looking at each person in the class saying, when are you ready to do this? And I think, okay, so she's able to reproduce the shapes in the drawing now. Well, we spray it. We start working on the value. And as you do it, you start working on which part's important. Here's the problem. Every time we start a painting exercise, it's a new color theory, it's a new color scheme, it's a new process, it's about transfer of colors, it's about a different medium, it's a different brush, it's a different surface. And our brain gets overwhelmed with, man, I can barely keep my head into order just doing this new concept. And oddly enough, I want you to continue to do the old one too. It's the strangest thing. You can't forget the drawing principles in this class. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You cannot forget the drawing principles in this class. And if you skip the drawing principles, then you're going to stay at one place. You'll be able to reproduce what you're looking at a high level. I saw something online and I shouldn't bring it in because that means I have to bring it. I'm just going to cut this from the video. So do not edit this in. I'm talking to myself. I saw this lady, and in her early stages, she painted these flat shapes like posters. And her designing of the negative shapes were really interesting. A little red, little blue. So she had a rectangle and basically made an abstract flat picture with a person silhouetted but in color. And the page was elegant. It was nicely done. And it's actually what she does for a living. She designs interior spaces, not the wallpaper and the paint color, but where a room goes, where the bathroom goes, the layout of the room. So that designing these shapes was so powerful and elegant, beautifully done. But I saw two of her paintings and she said, yeah, this is my favorite. And I'm looking at it and I realized why it was her favorite. The negative shapes around the figure, one had a little color. It was almost like the poster pictures that I liked that she did. And the other one had a shape where it had a little pattern in the chair. And she broke up the shapes to do something different that went with the portrait. So she combined the shapes with the beautiful handling of the edges of the painting. And it told a story. And it was beautiful. It wasn't just the figure in the middle page. And she combined the two. Now, I forced this person, I can't bring her name up, to go look on the website to look for the pictures. But I only saw two pictures and she didn't know it. I want you to know what you're doing. I want you to know why it's important to you. Do you know what I mean? So this makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any thoughts? So this picture has just changed. In fact, every picture has just changed. In every exercise in this class, we are going to do the macro, the micro, and the mini micro, starting with the pairs. I don't know how we'll do it with the pairs, but we'll figure out a way. Everything we do, I want to see a sequential order.
So do you do that when you're in the sketching phase or in the very beginning?
Actually, I do a lot of other answers long before I get to there to know why it's important to me. You're going to rely on me to tell you why it's important to me, and then you have to hold that thought in your head like a decent sentence, and then you're going to apply it. But I probably answer, 20 or 30 questions in art mapping before we do this, before we get to the macro and micro. I mean, it's way down the road. It used to be like the third thing we do. It's like the 30th thing we do. There's 50 questions I have that I have you answer. And the more questions you answer, you start to realize, oh, this is what this is about. Because we all want to paint this lady. And Sargent saying, no, it's a certain time of day, a certain time of the year. There's a certain coolness to the day. There's a certain briskness to the day. Because there's another lady where her scarf is moving and flowing, and it's horizontal to the page. And, so it's not comfortable out here. It's a little chilly. But yet the sun is warm and crisp, and maybe it's that Christmas is after. I don't know what he's after, and you can make that up. I'm good with you making it up, as long as you tell a story. And you tell a story with a sequential order, and this was her list. And I thought her number 1, 2, 3, 4 was very interesting because that's Sargent's order. See, I said you have a great eye. You spotted it. Okay, so when do you not spot it? Can I have your water bottle? So, and whatever that other thing is. So we used to in college have to do drawing. And he'd set up the ugliest things you've ever seen. He didn't want you to be worried about making art. And he just wanted you to understand the concept. Tell me why you chose to draw this and how you've been looking at this for years and you decided today's the day you're doing this. I'm all ears. Go ahead.
Why I'm doing this?
Yeah. How does it make you feel? That's the problem. Catherine, tell me that's not true, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's the problem. Everyone in the room has trouble with this part. It's easy to do your own thing. I mean, my exercise. But here's the problem with my exercise. When I walked around Bennett's early in the morning and I made the turn and I saw that picture, there's an excitement that I captured, that I felt. Well, you're looking at the picture. You don't have that feeling in my head. But you have to recreate a feeling in your head. And it doesn't matter what feeling you have. And here's the other thing that happens. That same picture that I felt a certain way 20 years ago, today I might feel differently. So I have to paint it under that thesis sentence of 20 years ago. And I could do it again. And as long as I made a new thesis sentence, I'm not doing the old painting over. I'm doing the new painting and say, well, how would I approach it differently? So when I look at El Jalejo, the Spanish dancer by Sargent, and I say, okay, Sargent, now that you've worked it out for 3 years, would you have started the same way? So that's my question. So I'm going to sketch it out and I'll show you this. I'm letting Thomas off. So El Jalejo looks like this. He puts in the floor. The main line is parallel to the page. So Catherine, what are the lines you're probably going to repeat?
That one.
Yeah. Well, we want to switch them up a little bit. So now maybe the main dancer is doing this. And how many paintings do we have of Sargent where she's just standing there in a yellow dress or something, or a white dress right there in front of you, and that's the pose. And then the next thing you do, he's got this big round billowy shape, right, for a dress. Well, you know, it's really kind of weird, is he's got these round guitars. Because whatever you put in first, you repeat. And he works on 3 years of putting these people in. And in 3 years, something changed. And the reason I can say this, now we don't know when it changed, but he worked 3 years. And his letters home or to friends was this wretched painting, or I'm not sure that's quite the word, but I took it that way. It was tormenting him. You know why it was tormenting him? Anyone know why? Because of his mom. Yeah. Yeah. I'm making this all up.
Okay. Goodness.
Poor Catherine. When Sargent was 14, this is a true story. Somewhere there's a letter where his mom said, you can't start a new thing till you finish the old.
Oh, that's sweet.
3 years. This is why he never called home. Well, there might have been another reason, but this is one reason he never called home. It was 1870. Okay. And that is that he was working on other things and he hadn't finished this tormenting painting that he had to finish because his mom might ask, how's the painting going? That part. Okay. There's an x-ray that shows this white lead white underneath the big dark area. And he made the painting about the diagonal. And all the horizontal lines of the shoulders, all of them were blurred. And he found all the diagonals on the people and the diagonals, and all of a sudden the painting was done. He decided, El Jalejo, the uproar, the Spanish roar, not Spanish roar. In Spanish, it means like this reverberating sound or uproar, it's commotion. Okay? You got guys clapping. El Jalejo, it's making noise. Surely this guy's hands clapping would have been found, but they're parallel to the page. And Sargent went El Gondo in Italian. And he had the contrast on the elbow of that guy and this girl's elbow in her dance. And all of a sudden it's the elbow in the dance and the diagonal. And it was the dance that the painting changed its name, but never legally. I don't want to spend 3 years on a painting and start over. So the art mapping is for you to figure this out. And the more sketches you do, the more you figure it out. If you let AI do these things for you and tell Lightroom, I'm sure Lightroom can do it now. I don't know. Is AI in Lightroom yet? There's a moment we're going to say, okay, Lightroom, remove that pole. Okay, I get that. Nothing wrong with that. But add 3 monkeys and a helicopter. And now I want to put a white dress on it and then give it a yellow light. That's it. I'm going to paint that. You know who should get the award? AI. The problem with AI is it's doing the work. And through the sketches and the journaling, you do the work and you discover why you chose this pose and the lighting. You can't skip the work.
Mhm.
Use AI for certain things, and that's it. I write our blogs. Kevin uses AI to add a paragraph somewhere in the middle of the keywords that week for searching. And I reproofed the blog because there have been times when it has changed my sentence. So the reason you're doing the work is so you find out why it's important to you. That's the reason you're doing art. This is for you for the rest of your life. Let go of the finished process, the finished painting as the product. Start enjoying doing the art. Start enjoying doing your art. That's what this is about. You enjoying your art. Stop worrying about it. Stop worrying how long it's taken. Don't phone home, right? If it's taken too long, don't phone home. Sargent did. And Carnation Lily Rose was no different.